Good day, citizens of the free world, from border to border, coast to coast, and to all the ships at sea. This is your correspondent, Jim Tate, and thank you for tuning in to the Tate Chronicles. Join me as we cut through the fog that exists at the leading edge of healthcare technology. Our mission is simple. We're searching for beneficial disruption in healthcare from emerging technologies. My guest today is Dr. Robert Laidlaw. Robert is a neurosurgeon and founder and executive director of Secure Health Chain. On their website, it says they are building Australia's first blockchain-based digital health solution to connect all of healthcare data, and solve challenges. I first met Dr. Laidlaw at the recent Blockchain Healthcare Summit in Boston and have been looking forward to this discussion ever since. Dr. Laidlaw, thanks for joining us on the Tate Chronicles.
Oh, thanks very much for having me, Jim.
You're 14 hours ahead of me. I'm sitting on Tuesday. I'm on Wednesday, and you're Thursday morning. So I hope things are doing okay there in the future.
Yeah, no, it works out just fine.
Yeah, that's great. Well, first, tell me a little bit about your background. I know it's really healthcare delivery, and how you became, though, involved in healthcare information technology.
Yeah, sure. So my background is actually a medical doctor over here in Australia, and I've been practicing clinical medicine now for about 7 years, working at lots of fairly large centres down the East Coast. But I guess personally I've really always been a bit of a technology geek and interested in the latest and greatest gadgets. I've always lined up for the new release of the iPhone or the Android phone or what have you. And I guess over the last few years I've just seen in Australian context more and more issues with lack of investment and lack of progress on the e-health rollout. So I guess really I've decided to try and combine my two passions, which is healthcare and technology, and try and bring them into one with our new company.
Well, I'm much more, of course, familiar with the U.S. healthcare technology because under the U.S. healthcare system, there were certainly incentives and negative payment adjustments for providers who do not use electronic health records.
Yep.
What has stirred, and stimulated the healthcare technology in Australia? Have there been incentives?
Yeah, so I think we haven't really gone for that option about tying up the payments, and I think that's probably a mistake from our point of view. Certainly, I think once you tie anything to a payment, you seem to get a lot more action. The rollout of e-health, I think I've had the benefit of working in 3 different states now down the East Coast, and it always amazes me how different they all really are. They're different priorities, they're different amounts of investment, and the technology they're using. I think something like South Australia has a very clear digital health policy, which I'm very impressed by how they're moving forward and trying to be innovative and disruptive. But I mean, for example, there are electronic systems in Victoria, one of the southern states, who, yes, they have an electronic system, but what it involves is A4 pieces of paper that the doctor still hand writes on, and they're scanned into the electronic medical record. And so you see a digital replica of the sheet of paper. Now, I'm not passing judgment per se, but I would say that's not really disruptive or progressive thinking when we talk about the next phases of what we're trying to achieve in terms of capturing the data in a meaningful way. Another example here in Wollongong, where I work, the intensive care unit has recently just instigated its own electronic health system, and it sits alongside the hospital system. Now, in order for data to be from that one system, from that one silo into the hospital system, it needs to be sort of almost manually printed out and then scanned in. And I guess I would question the integrity of such a system. I think that everything should be connected and the data should be fluid.
Well, that's right. If you're just scanning things in, you really don't have that discrete data that can be reported on. There really is no true data interoperability there. Well, tell me what caused you to start thinking about and form this Secure Health Chain company. What problems did you see, and what were the challenges?
So the main problem in Australia, which is probably very similar all around the world, is that of security. Security is the number one word, as you would know, and everybody's talking about it, especially in Australia. Just this last week, the rollout of our government-led digital health platform, it's all about security. And I guess I first started reading about this new and exciting technology called blockchain last year, and it was quite addictive, really. The more I read about it, the more I just thought it was the perfect use case for healthcare in every way. And so, look, the problem with security is very, very much first and foremost. But the second issue I've seen is this lack of interoperability between systems. And I don't want to point the finger, but if I was, I'd probably point the finger at the USA, to be honest, because lots of innovations do come from the US, and it's amazing how, up until now, most of these large e-health platforms don't have any interoperability. And so I think having something like blockchain that would be able to facilitate the systems talking to each other, I think that would be really valuable.
Well, I'm glad you brought up blockchain and healthcare, because that is something I'm really very interested in. And there's certainly a lot of use cases in healthcare for blockchain, whether it's for professional credentialing or supply chain of pharmaceuticals. It seems like secure health chain is really focused on actual health records being in a blockchain. So is this a private blockchain with permissions, or is this a public blockchain? And really, what is the foundation of what secure health chain is doing as far as what type of blockchain it's interacting with?
Yeah, so we haven't launched our product yet. It's still in development and being built, but it will be a public blockchain, because we believe that having a private blockchain in some ways will defeat the purpose of having the data distributed amongst many parties. So we certainly want it to be a public blockchain. The problems, I guess, what we're going to do with the problems is address something like putting the patients in control of their own health record and using the health record on their smart device every day, always. And being always connected, always secure with your device, I think, is really important to encourage patients to take responsibility for their health. Another sort of feature of what we're doing is having a single source of truth. We find that people will go to 30 or 40 different medical practices in their lifetime, and they all have a snapshot of where the patient is at that point in time. And without having a single place where the true copy is kept, you very quickly arise into a lot of problems. So my background is in neurosurgery. I'm a neurosurgery registrar here in Sydney and here in Wollongong. And for example, an older patient that perhaps is on a blood thinning medication for whatever, they might come in and that might be altered by their GP. Now, often these older people are on 20 or even 30 medications, and if there's not a single copy of what they are on currently, it can become a real problem.
I don't want to get too terribly technical, but I'm curious, are you building your application to run on top of the Ethereum blockchain, or has that decision been made?
We are. Yep. And I think we've seen some of the other medical blockchain people have done that as well, and they've now looking at building their own solutions, and that might be something that we look at, after we launch our product onto the market.
Do you have an established timeline? When do you think you'll be launching?
So our token offering will be launched in September of this year, and the beta testing will be throughout the fourth quarter of this year, and launching in Australia in the first quarter of next year. That's the timeline.
And so will this be, do you see Secure Health Chain, this record, is it just for patients that are Australia-based, or is this really have potential for global use?
Yeah, so our company vision really is to connect the world's health data to try and improve patient care, simply put. And so certainly, very early on, we want to be going over to Asia and hopefully over to the US as well. Look, we don't see ourselves first and foremost as a commercial entity. We don't want to monopolise the health data world or anything like that. We certainly would love to collaborate with anyone and everyone that's interested in blockchain or health data as a whole. The other sort of feature of what we're trying to do is have a separate system inside our ecosystem that's going to be sort of somewhat gamification of health interactions. people will be able to earn points much in the same way you do if you get American Airlines points when you fly with them. Every time you check your record, you'll be given points, and those points can be then traded for health-related products like gym memberships or protein shakes and things like that. I think that's already been tried in other blockchain companies in the UK and the US, and that's going quite well.
You know, the whole concept, and so these almost patient incentives, will those incentives be in the form of tokens that can be exchanged, or have you gone that far?
So the internal ones that are just within our system will be just points. They won't be tokens, and they'll be able to be traded for goods and services.
You know, something we're starting to see, one possible use of blockchain healthcare is patient compliance. Now, patient compliance can mean a lot of things. In your case, as you just mentioned, it's patients logging in and checking their record. Other forms of the patient compliance could be if somebody has a diagnosis of diabetes and they're able to keep their blood sugar within normal limits, or hypertension, keeping their blood pressure within normal limits. There seem to be quite a few initiatives going on working on the patient compliance side, or a high body mass index, being able to lose weight, that there's some type of incentivizing going on in that way. Well, what are your thoughts about that? Have you seen much of that work going on?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly probably could use that last one myself. I think the losing weight one, but I think there's massive scope for integrating user-generated data into their health record, and that will certainly be one of the cornerstones of our platform. After our initial phases launch, we'd love to see personal devices and IoT devices integrated into the system. Every second person now will have a Fitbit on their hand, or some sort of tracker that measures their heart rate. Even some of them have become quite sophisticated already, and they're continuously monitoring your heart rate. So that data is really wasted, in my opinion, and it's just set aside and not really put to any use. I think a cardiologist would be very interested if you had a heart problem about how many steps you took every day for the last year or two. I'm sure the pharmaceutical company would be interested in anonymous data about how well your blood sugar was controlled if you were taking their brand of insulin, for example. So, look, I think there's a lot of opportunity and scope for really exciting things in this space. It's about assembling the technology and presenting it to consumers so it's first and foremost easy to use, and from our point of view, so it's secure and safe always, because the last thing we want to do is put this really precious information out into the public arena. Well,
with Secure Health Chain, what are you planning to do about really large files? Since the blockchain is not really a good database, it's a fantastic list or ledger manager, but really large, like radiographic files. Are you planning on storing those off the chain, have encrypted pointers, or storing them on the chain? What are your plans around that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think we actually spoke about this in Boston at the conference, but obviously those large DICOM databases can't be stored on the blockchain because it's just not economical or practical. And so we will have servers, data centers that we're associated with in each country that we roll out to. In Australia, there's an IBM data center we'll be using in Canberra, and that'll be interfaced with the blockchain to keep the identity of the patients and the patient details secure. Yeah, I think that's sort of the best model for that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think we're going to see certainly more and more of that, where these really hybrid systems, which are a public blockchain, but connected to databases, where large amounts of data are actually stored.
What I would just say about on that point as well, sure, Jim, is, I mean, at the moment I'm working as a neurosurgery doctor here in Wollongong, and every second patient that I see in the emergency department that comes in has already had imaging of their central nervous system in the community somewhere. And especially in an emergency, if we're suspecting a bleed, that information is quite valuable to be able to make a comparison about a previous study, even if it was the previous day. And it just amazes me how in 2018 here in what is a very modern and wealthy country like Australia, that the hospital down the road, the other public hospital, often we can't just easily or simply see the images. And look, that's based basically around privacy themes and security. And I think blockchain is a very good use case for having a trusted pathway to accessing patients' data. We certainly look forward to working with the people in the radiology department here.
And so you have, I'd like to hear a little bit more about really the startup of this company, Secure Health Chain. I guess you had an idea. You talked with some of your colleagues. How did you actually go about doing the startup? Did you go to a startup incubator or organization, or you started with an idea? And then how did you build it?
Yeah, so it was an idea, really. It was in really just January this year. We were operating, and I started to just start pitching people during the operation when there was a pause where we had to wait. And, within 7 days, I was lucky enough to get about $100,000 worth of angel investment just from colleagues in the operating theatre and around the hospital. And that has allowed me to register the company and get some part-time staff and get some designs and plans rolled out. But look, we're looking at a few options for incubators, and we've gone through a round of interviews, and we're awaiting to hear back from a few more. So there should hopefully be some news on that very soon. There are at least two other that I know of, sort of medical record blockchain projects in Australia. But I guess the main point of difference between us and them is that I'm a medical doctor, and most of our team are doctors, and I think it's really important to have doctors as part of the leadership team at least with these type projects, because we're in the system every day, and we've got the patient's best interest always. So.
Sure, that makes total sense. Well, when I met you in Boston, it sounded like you were on a tour of the U.S., maybe going to some different conferences and networking with blockchain and healthcare. Any things that surprised you in your time here in the U.S. and going to conferences and talking to people? Any trends we need to know about that you saw?
Yeah. Something I think that has been interesting is very similar themes are coming up at every meeting in every country and everybody I speak to. And in some ways that's quite reassuring that we're all on the same page, I guess. Data security, like I said, is number one. And whether you're in the US or in Sydney, that's what the patients are concerned about. And consequently, that's what the providers are concerned about. So I think the onus is very much on us as health informaticians or technologists to build the solutions that address that and put security at the forefront. In Australia at the moment, I'm not sure if you follow Australian health politics, probably not, I suspect, but we're rolling out a platform by the government called My Health Record, and it's attracting enormous amounts of publicity. It's literally been the leading news story now for 2 weeks straight, and it's just getting bigger and bigger. The project here, I believe, has cost around $1 billion, somewhere in that realm, so quite a lot for Australia, given our size. And it was first really started back in 2012, so 6 years ago. I haven't met a single person who uses it, certainly to a functional way or in a beneficial way. And it's just become apparent in the last few weeks that a lot of the data might be shared with other agencies, with the police or even the immigration department or the tax department. And so it's really heating up as a bit of an issue, and there's a bit of a rise for a boycott in Australia at the moment. So it'll be very interesting to watch that space. There's even been a number of politicians that have sort of put their hand up and publicly announced how they're opting out of using the system and removing their records and things. So really, I guess it's perfect PR for a company like us who has security at their forefront. But, I have said a number of times when commenting about My Health Record, I still believe in the project, and I think it's a good thing. Digital health is crucial for us if we want to improve health outcomes, but that's just something.
Well, digital health, electronic health information, it is critical to move forward. Interoperability, just the promise and potential of what can it bring. So is the main issue with it, with that initiative in Australia, that there's a privacy concern? What's the real concern?
Yeah, so I guess the issue is that there wasn't enough notice given to the public. And so it actually, like I said, was launched in 2012, but it was an opt-in system that you could nominate to go into, and I did that. I sort of was a bit of an IT nerd and logged in and did that. But they found that almost nobody actually took up the offer. And so 6 years later, they had next to no users on this system they'd spent $1 billion on. So essentially, they made a decision to switch it over to everybody gets one, whether they like it or not. And they've given everyone just a 3-month window to put in submission to opt out of the system. And they're finding that it's estimated now that it'll be close to 1 million people at least are going to opt out due to these privacy concerns. Australian Medical Association has become involved and are trying to remove any ambiguity about all these conditions, but there's a lot of cross stories and misinformation. So.
Well, that's fascinating. I'll definitely keep an eye on that. Something you mentioned earlier is the fact that Secure Health Chain really has the foundation is subject matter experts. You've yourself, a neurosurgeon, and your medical colleagues know what you want out of a system. But the other side of it is you have to have expertise and skills in programming and in just the concepts of blockchain. Has it been difficult to find that expertise, the blockchain expertise, to work with?
Look, I mean, given that it's a relatively new technology, it's not an abundance of quality blockchain developers. I think Australia is leading the way in some respects, certainly from a corporation point of view. I know the Australian Security and Investments Corporation has really some groundbreaking legislation they've brought in late last year around initial coin offerings and governance around those. So I think Australia is an attractive place for that. In terms of blockchain developers, though, they're few and far between in Australia. But I guess there is options for outsourcing things overseas. And I think over the next coming months, there'll be a lot more options coming up.
You know, you've certainly been to a number of healthcare blockchain conferences and summits. I have also. One thing that kind of surprises me sometimes is how infrequently the concept of smart contracts is discussed. And of course, smart contracts are the kind of blockchain 2.0 that brings functionality that's way beyond the base functionality of the public blockchain. Is really brought to us by the Ethereum platform.
Yep.
Do you see smart contracts being used somewhat in the development work that you're doing? And could you discuss that a minute for us?
Yeah. I must admit I agree with your comments. I've been to a reasonable number of events now, and I think it might be a function of new hype around the industry, and so there's a lot of talk and a lot of presentations. It's about the headlines and things without a lot of the nitty-gritty, juicy, deep detail and things. So, smart contracts I think are key, and certainly our system will be using them in lots of different ways. Some of it is yet to be released, so unfortunately can't mention it per se at the moment, but it'll definitely be a core feature of our platform.
Yeah, smart contracts. We're going to see more and more about that as we move forward. The real potency and potential of a lot of blockchains will really revolve around these smart contracts. And of course, there's risk there. These smart contracts have to be audited. They have to be validated. They have to be verified because if they're not well understood, there could be some real problems with them. Well, I can't believe it, but we only have a couple more minutes here. So let me ask this question. If someone wants to get in touch with you, find out more about the work you're doing at Secure Health Chain, how can folks find you? Can they follow you on Twitter? What's your website address?
We're across all the channels now. So if you just search for Secure Health Chain, we're on Facebook, YouTube. But I would just produced a little fun animation, actually, that's on our YouTube channel, which talks about, a very simplistic view of what blockchain is. But You can email me, rob@shcx.io, or our website is shcx.io is our website as well.
Well, great. Well, to those who've joined us today, we appreciate your attendance and listening to this episode of the Tate Chronicles. I offer a special salute to my guest from Australia, Dr. Robert Laidlaw. You can find more information on this show's program page at healthcarenowradio.com. Until we meet again, here's wishing you smooth sailing and safe harbors. And thank you so much, Dr. Laidlaw.
Oh, thanks for having me, Jim. We look forward to having you over here in Australia, sunny Australia, for a catch-up very soon.
Oh, I'd love to. Thank you very much.